Chapter 13. He had had enough sleep during the drive back to Bangkok, and now he was wide awake. He killed the time by turning on a computer game he had left inactive for a long time, playing it to distract him from reminiscing about life on the hill. It was as if his fresh wound started to heal, yet if he touched it, the scab wound cracked and bleed again, and it hurt. It took him almost all of the night to get drowsy. He was lying on his back in his comfortable cotton pajamas on a fragrant bed sheet from fabric softener. The air conditioner in the large room kept the temperature cool. Beautiful pair of eyes gazed at the plaster ceiling as if he was seeing the scenes from his past playing out up there. It was too soon to let go and forget all those precious memories, and to resume his old life as if nothing had happened. A sob welled up in his chest, but Tien swallowed it down. He closed his wet eyes and let time heal his wounded heart. 8 o'clock sharp was breakfast hour for Sofa de Sacul family. The housekeeper and maids had set the table before their masters came down to take the seats. The scent of boiled rice prompted Tum, Con, and Tam, the sons and daughter of Pimprapa, to run towards the dining room. Lady Lolita cocked her eyebrow in surprise to see an early visitor. "Why did you come this early, Pim darling?" "My husband came back from his Swiss business trip yesterday, so I'm bringing the souvenirs for you, Mom and Dad," she said, and gestured to the maids to be careful with the expensive gift bags. "You can come later. I'm not going anywhere today." Impraba ignored her mom's teasing. In fact, she had learned about the return of her rascal little brother, and she wanted to see with her own eyes what a wreck he was. Anyone who heard about his antic, running away from home to become a teacher on a hill, wouldn't be able to hold back a mocking laugh. She cleared her throat before asking, "Your beloved boy isn't up yet?" "I didn't tell anyone to wake him up. He must be really tired, and I wanted him to take a good rest." "I see. He must have gone through a ringer up there. Why did he behave like a spoiled brat, running away from home just to shock his parents?" "Don't blame him like that. I'm happy he came home in one piece." "See? You're spoiling him rotten, and that's why he was acting out." Then Braba couldn't hold back her sarcasm. She knew that he was pampered from being born 10 years apart from his older brother and sister, but she couldn't help feeling sour towards him. She rolled her eyes until they landed on a figure on the stairs behind her mom and held back her words. She didn't know how much he had heard, but her brother was expressionless. He didn't act as if he had some vehement retorts up his sleeves as usual. "I'm hungry. Can we start eating?" he said with a neutral tone that made his older sister become even more speechless. Yeah, we can," Pimprapa said and spun on her heels, heading towards the end of the table. She didn't bother asking about his well-being like a sister and a brother would. The general was already waiting at the head of the lavishing teak dining table with his three grandchildren were munching boiled rice and omelette next to him. The young man raised her hands to greet her father in a Y before sitting down on her seat. Then she shot her younger brother a mock. "Tom, don't sit on someone else's seat. The owner has come home, you see." Ian looked at his eldest nephew, who stared at him with big, bright eyes as the boy's hand that held his spoon stopped mid-air. He objected to his sister. I can sit anywhere. It doesn't matter. Don't bother moving around." He pulled the last chair at the end of the table and sat down. The maid started serving the boiled rice to the youngest master of the house before he would get upset that she was too slow. Ken glanced at his father, who was dressed in his formal attire, wondering if he had to leave home to do some errands, and sighed. They didn't have the chance to sit down and talk since he came home. He raked his eyes over the various dishes on the table, all looking delicious. He picked the closest meal, a fluffy and crispy omelette that wasn't oily. It was a far cry from the version of burned omelette he had made, unable to control the heat from a charcoal stove. Just the first bite and his eyes burned from its tastiness. His mind went straight back to the man who had taught him how to cook and even finished the worst stir-fried vegetable he made without a single complaint. Tian inhaled deeply and threw the boiled rice into his mouth until he finished half the bowl. Lady Lalita watched her son's unusual behavior before he spoke up before she could ask. Mom, can you ask the cook to make only Western food for me from now on? Why so? Or did you get sick of homey food like this meal? I guess it didn't fit your snobbish attitude towards the finer things in life. Pimprapa sneered with contempt. So, you're back because you just couldn't take the hard life? Hearing the last sentence, Tian shot up from his seat until the chair creaked loudly against the floor. I can spend the rest of my life there. But I'm not letting you go ever again. The lady mother cut him off and turned to scold her daughter for ruining the peaceful morning. Pim, stop bickering, or I won't let you have the diamond set for the reception next week. Pimprapa shut her mouth and started eating. Lady Lalita rose and came to her son, touching his arm to calm him down. The determination in his eyes made her fear that he would do just as he said. Sit down, my dear. I will have a maid toast some bread and bring you the jam. You should have some milk and orange juice too. Ken yielded, not wanting to upset his mom. As he waited for the bread, he was drinking plain milk and catching a curious stare from his niece. Tam poked her finger at his cheek that still bore a faint purple bruise. You're hurt right here? If it was in the past, he would have told his impish niece and nephews to get lost. But now, as he looked into the big bright eyes shone with innocence, he was resigned. Even if they were wicked, they were just kids. No, I'm not. I'm almost healed. My mom said Uncle Tian loves getting into a fist fight. That's why you always have cuts and bruises. Did you believe her? The child nodded innocently. I did, because he always shouted at us. The honest answer from his 6-year-old niece made him speechless with guilt. I will not shout at you guys anymore. But if you want to play with my stuff, can you ask for permission first? If we do, will you let us? I will, the uncle said firmly. But if you guys damage my toys, there will be a punishment. Tam pouted upon hearing the condition, then she got distracted by the cake her grandmother had ordered a maid to bring. Tian took the chance to put the jam on his bread. Once they finished eating, he excused himself to see the doctor at the hospital as they had asked him to. A brand new European four-door sedan was waiting at the drive-in in front of the mansion, a replacement of the old sports car that had been sold while he lived up on the hill. They told him they didn't want him to resume his racing hobby, which was fine by him. He even thought that it would do him good since the Maserati Gran Turismo was too hard to drive in Thailand anyway. Ken took the key from the family's driver and got in the car. The cushion's softness and the car's state-of-the-art technology made him smile bitterly. This didn't feel as safe as the seat he'd taken at the back of that old motorcycle with a massive officer as a rider. He shook off the thought and adjusted the side view mirror, put on his sunglasses, and stepped on the accelerator to leave the mansion. It had been nearly 2 weeks since he returned to Bangkok, yet he still felt life was chaotic. Lady Lalita partly begged and partly forced him to attend receptions with her almost every day. Sometimes she told him to accompany her friends' daughters to shopping malls or cinemas, as if she feared if she left him alone at home he would run away again. Tian let out a heavy sigh. He wasn't upset about his mother's fussiness. He was just tired. Luckily, today he was alone to come to the university to resume his study, and he didn't have to tolerate the women's chatters like the past few days. By late morning, the famous campus in the middle of the city was filled with students, and the roads were occupied with cars. He went to file his request at the administrative building and went to the engineering department to meet his advisor. His classmates who are now in their senior year spotted the man who had been missing for a long time and flocked in to ask about his well-being and why he had dropped off for a year. Still, they weren't that close anymore. He didn't blame anyone. Since the day he had been diagnosed with myocarditis, it was him who turned his back on them, thinking they had a brighter future ahead of them, and started hanging out with his wealthy scoundrel friends instead, slowly destroying his own life. Without Crew Thorfon's heart, he wouldn't be right here. He reached and touched his left chest as he slipped away to sit alone to ponder about life at a grandstand near a basketball field where the juniors were playing a game. Strangely, after he had declared his intention on Papandao, the heart that was beating inside his chest seemed to calm down and never gave him any objecting pain again. The young man leaned back his head to rest against the step of the grandstand, feeling drained. His body was here, but his heart was somewhere else. The question was, how could he go on living like this when every moment his mind went back to the memories of that village? Ken closed his face that was twisted with a myriad of emotions. How long did he have to suffer? This was why you told me to forget everything, wasn't it? The phone that rang out of nowhere made him jump. He pulled it up and saw an unfamiliar number on the screen, but still picked it up. The low, stern tone from the other end lit up his darkened world once again. Hello, Tian? Ruvinai! Hello! How are you? I wanted to call you the first day you came back, but I thought you might still be tired. I'm sorry I didn't get in touch with you, Tian spluttered. I was busy back home and now I'm back to school. That's all right, I understood. Tang Tong Foundation director said kindly. If you have free time, could you come to see me so we can talk? Talk? The younger man swallowed thickly, afraid that some secrets during his time as a volunteer teacher had been exposed. Yes, I want to talk to you. You still haven't told me about something as you've promised. It took Tian a moment to respond. All right, sir, I'll go to see you this afternoon. The luxurious European sedan slowly headed towards a narrow, quiet soi in Thonburi district. Thonburi is the old capital of Thailand before Bangkok, situated on the other end of Chao Phraya riverbank. Ian parked the car next to an old brick wall with a foundation sign on the fence. As he walked closer, loud cheers of children could be heard from inside the foundation. He reached towards the handle of the curved steel door, but it swung open right away. The chubby man that stood before him was Gurvinine, still dressed in his faded indigo shirt and pants like the last time they had met. Welcome home, Grutien. The word crew coming from the other man, addressing him as a teacher, made the younger man unnerving and he shook his head. Please don't call me that. I'm far cry from being one. The director smiled widely, take, taking in the clothes and shoes the younger man was wearing, still all high-end brands from head to toe like before. Yet something was different about him. You've changed. The engineering student cocked his eyebrow in a silent question. Proven eye stared into his brown eyes, saying, Your eyes. They don't have that fire anymore. The words shot through his heart as if the older man had seen through his mind. The hand that was holding a plastic bag with stationery from the university's corporation shop was trembling. Crew, I don't say it just yet. Let's get inside and we'll talk. Ruven said, and led Tien into the grass field where children from an orphanage were jumping up and down with their teachers. A brown pavilion stood in the distance in the middle of the verdant garden with tall, big trees. Seeing the leaves dance in the breeze calmed him down. Tien dropped down on a chair in the tight pavilion across from the foundation's director. They took in a quiet moment to let the tension ease and started talking. To be honest, you've surprised me that you've lasted that long on Papandao. 2 months. Yan gave him a sad smile. Still, I couldn't complete the term just like how you've predicted. Trust me, if that dangerous incident didn't happen, you would have made it. That incident happened because of me. Yan lowered his head as if he was ridden with guilt. I almost got the son of the village chief killed. Don't overthink things. It was just one of those things that happened to us. Ruvenai gave a consolation, but that prompted the younger man to burst out. I'm right here, but my mind is over there. The children taught me about giving. The villagers taught me how to recognize my self esteem. I spent only a short time with them, but they've turned out to be the best things that happened to me. Them and the big, tall officer who taught him about love, where all rules in the world could be broken. Tears silently ran down his cheeks, speaking loud and clear all the words he could not say. Ruvenai watched the younger man rub the tears from his bloodshot eyes, feeling empathetic towards the poor boy as a man who had been through thick and thin himself. So, have you found the answer you were looking for? Tian took in a deep breath a few times to calm down, and he said, I don't think someone who always brought nothing but troubles to my parents could do something good for others. That's because you have something that they don't. He nodded in agreement. The villagers were so kind to a stranger like me. I wish I didn't have to come back to the city anymore. The director shook his head as it started to dawn on him, while the wealthy, younger man was depressed. Tien, I think you're lost. Wanting to be where I am happy is wrong? Tien frowned. So, you tell me why you're not trying to get back there again. The bad guys were arrested. Everything went back to normal and should be so for a while. I can arrange for you to go there. Tien held his words, hesitated. His eyes shone with confusion. No matter how much he wanted to do so, he couldn't. Seeing his mother's worried face, he realized that he was just a kid who wasn't able to survive without help from his parents. He was still in school and got financial support from them. Even if he knew that all along, he was too stubborn and did what he did. Yan put his hand on his forehead like a lost man, not knowing what to do or how to let go. I just don't want it to become another passing memory. But life has to go on, Tian. Don't let your attachment destroy the future. You know you can't remain a volunteer teacher there your whole life. What about the family who's waiting to see your success? Are you going to leave them behind? The younger man looked down without saying a word. The foundation director got from his seat and sat down next to him, speaking in a gentle voice. Let me tell you something. The first day you arrived in Chiang Rai, I got a phone call from someone. My dad, right? A big smile on Purvinai's face gave him the answer. He was asking about your visit at the foundation and what made you run away, leaving just a letter behind. I never imagined things would have gone that far. So I told him I'd go after you myself. But What he told me that day was, if he has a good intention and the right mind, I wouldn't stop him. We will always support him. The older man patted Tian on the shoulder as if to give him moral support. So, the past that has happened could have been the future you've chosen for yourself. Make the best out of the present moment. The simple words cleared the fog that had boggled his mind. The sad, lightless eyes were lit up once again. Tian slowly raised his hands to perform a Y to the selfless, giving teacher as he was overwhelmed with gratitude. The teacher didn't only teach the students in class but also showed him the way of life. Thank you so much. I want that future to come to me too. The handsome, fair face was now painted with a calmness like a man who had grown mentally and spiritually. He wanted to bet against time and see how solid their feelings for each other would be. Promise me that you'll wait for me no matter how long it takes. It was as if a fortune came with a misfortune. Even if he was recovering well after the surgery, taking a break from school at the beginning of the first semester of his third year left Tien no choice but to restart with his junior all over again. He was getting tired of being dragged here and there with his mother, so he signed up for an optional class in the April summer break to collect the credits. He spent his time at the university and home until the new semester started. It was somehow strange to see his friends in the last year while he was in the same classes with the juniors who used to greet him with "Y." Tian was intently scribbling down a lecture. He wasn't an outstanding student or a bookworm, but experience had taught him that if he didn't do his best now, there might not be a tomorrow to fix things up. His junior mentee was the one who invited him to join lunch at the canteen. Tian sometimes said yes out of the sense of obligation, but sometimes he said no. He preferred to sit in an aircon shop outside the university to ogle at girls. Finally, the extra class that lasted until 6 o'clock in the evening was over. The students cried in a loud cheer as they stuffed their bags to hurry home. Among the young people in gray lab shirts thronged down the stairs like ants running away from the nest. The man at the last in the row stood out. The man wore a buzz cut, with a messy bed hairstyle. His fair face was a contrast to the shirt's collar, and his long legs were covered by washed-out jeans. He slowly descended down the stairs, looking badass without trying, that the man who was waiting for him gave a teasing whistle. Ian narrowed his eyes at the fair-skinned rich bad boy who was blocking his way, letting out a heavy sigh. I told you, I'm not going. Yeah, I know. That's why I came here to see you. Why the class took so long? My legs got a cramp. Who gave himself a mock massage on the thighs, whining, afraid that his friend would run away again. He took the trouble to drive from the other end of Bangkok and waited for Tien since 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but it took way too long for the other man to finish his class. You're wasting your time. You know I can't drink anymore. Why the hell should I go? From last night's talk on the phone, Tool told him there was going to be a party at a high-end club in Thong Nor area with a racing band, who he hadn't seen in a long time. He had said no, but didn't expect Tool to be this persistent. You can drink the fucking soda. Just be there, for fuck's sake. They called you chicken shit. Ken stopped to think for a moment, then waved his hand dismissively. Fuck them. They didn't give a shit while I was dying in the hospital. I haven't seen any one of them. Don't be petty. You know how they're like. Phil took a step closer and whispered. Actually, I made a bet with them that I'd drag you out of the cave today. Can you not humiliate me? That's your business, man. Why the fuck did you put a bet on me? As he finished shouting at his friend, he backed away to leave. Phil grabbed his arm. I put 100,000 baht on you. If you come with me, the money is all yours. You can do whatever you want with it. The bad boy emphasized the last words.
Or you can donate it to that foundation for underprivileged kids. Not a bad idea, isn't it?
Tian looked up and met the eyes of his wicked friend, trying to gauge his hidden agenda. He knew well that 100,000 meant nothing to that rich boy gang. This sum of money on a stupid bet was nothing when their normal bet was at 500,000. You've given your words. Tomorrow, the money has to be in my account. Phil's face split in a wide grin. He lifted his hand to perform an oath.
Honest God's honor, baby.
The engineering student shook his head, feeling that he had walked right into a wolf's trap. But it didn't matter. He would sit there for a couple of hours, then leave. I'm going home. See you at 8 at the place. Phil nodded and waved to the slender form that was walking away, relieved. He wasn't a good man, but seeing Tian after he had come back from the hill gave him a creep. How come a rascal turned into a hard-working student as if he was chasing after an honors degree? That wasn't a friend he once knew. So he concocted a plan to make a bet with the guys so he could get Tian to the club. He even imagined Tian to be transformed back into his old fabulous self once he met his old friends with benefit. A famous nightclub in the top-notch Thonglor neighborhood was known for its best live music, and tonight it was packed with teens and office workers who were letting out their frustration and having a good time. Smoking was prohibited, but the nicotine smell still leaked in from the outside. Tian greeted a waiter who eyed him as he recognized the former frequent patron, and closed his hand over his nose that was burning from the smokes. Since he had given up all drugs, his body seemed to be extra sensitive to toxic smells. This was one of the reasons why he didn't want to hang out at this kind of place anymore. Cascading glass partitions in the club reflected with myriad lights in the darkness, and it didn't take him long to find his group of friends. Tien, wearing a shirt over a tee with dark diesel jeans, walked towards a VIP desk near the bar and on the side of the live stage. Cole spotted him first and waved at him. The rest of the gang looked around and gave a loud whistle.
Here comes the hermit. Come right here, punk. You have to get wasted with us.
Someone in the gang threw his arm around Tien, locking him in an intimate embrace, and pulled him to sit down on an empty spot. The girls who were there to entertain them flanked the wealthy engineering student, and Tien shot a glare at the man who made him come here. Then his former friend with benefit took his arm and pressed it against her bosom. Where have you been, Tien? I've missed you. Tien cast a glance at the pretty face masked by the makeup of the girl he once dated for a while. His eyes went down to her full bosom under a tight dress, and he swallowed thickly. He had tried to be a better man, but the force of nature was just too impossible to resist. I wasn't in a good shape. The young man tried to pull away from her, groping, but bumped into another girl's arm on the other end. Are you in a good shape here? The girl named Shimpu ran her hand down and gently touched his torso without asking first, whispering into his ear. This girl here wants to check it out. Let's go home together, BTN. The sweet whispering made his blood hot as it rushed through his body. Tian frowned at the unwelcomed emotions and he shot up. I need to pee. Before he could walk away, the racing gang burst out laughing in unison and started spewing insults.
But did you just by that one touch? You got premature ejaculation?
Tian felt numbed with anger. He wanted to slap them for their offenses, but he held his back as someone's words rang out in his head.
You're smart enough. You know there are many other ways to deal with people than using brute force.
His lips stretched into a wicked grin. Hitting these foul-mouthed motherfuckers would only hurt his hand. He had stopped hurting himself, but perhaps someone could do it for him.
Yeah, I gotta release some tension.
Tool, who opened his mouth to tell them to shut up, was taken aback as he watched the tall, lean man walk away. He had thought a fight was about to break out, but Kian was eerily calm that it broke out the alarm in his mind. Someone handed him a glass of whiskey, so he took the glass and gulped down the alcohol to calm his confusion. The lean form went through the moving crowd on the dance floor until he reached his target, sitting at the other end of the bar. He shot her seductive eyes the way he had liked to do in the past, before dropping himself into a tall seat next to her. "Are you here by yourself?" The hot vixen threw back her curled hair that reached down her mid-back, flaunting her beauty at the handsome young man. "How many people are here with me? You see that I'm alone." This statement, often translated as "she was taken." "I didn't imagine I'd be so lucky." Tian leaned closer to the fair face that started to bear a red hue. "You want to do something with me?" "What do you have in mind?" she answered in a hushed voice, thrilled that a wealthy and handsome man had approached her tonight. The future engineer grinned. He borrowed a pen from a bartender and scribbled a name and a number on a paper saucer. Then his eyes caught a tall, large man walking through the crowd and coming right at them. "See you outside at midnight." He cut the conversation short and stole away in the dim light among the crowd. He didn't go to the bathroom as he said, but headed towards the raised floor to look down at the lower floor, waiting for the fun to start. He didn't have to wait long before a muscular man who looked like a wrestler and must have been the hot girl's boyfriend was shouting for a name he'd written on the saucer. Of course, it wasn't his name. That wrestler was barking the name to every table until he got to the VIP one near the stage. A drunken man who heard his name in an aggressive tone shot up to his feet, looking defiant. They shouted insults at each other for a while until a fist fight broke out. The rich boy gang tried to stop the fight, but they were pushed out one by one. Ken put his chin on his hands, watching the whole tumultuous scene below in amusement, satisfied. He didn't become a better man with a guilty conscience. He had just learned how to take better revenge. But then things seemed to go too far as the buff guy's friends joined in. They grabbed bottles from a nearby table and smashed them to make weapons from the serrated glasses. The night crawlers screamed, frightened, and the band stopped playing and jumped down the stage to flee. Tian's eyes widened. "Fuck!" He pushed through the crowds as they ran downstairs. The tang of blood and whines of pain made him rush in and stop the men in a fight. A sharp elbow that hit him and sent him backward was a wake-up call. Someone had to stop them. The police. Would it be too late, though? He dodged the broken glasses and crept towards the low stage, finding his shield and sweeping the sweat off his face. What should I do now? He fetched the phone from his jeans pocket and pressed a button with a trembling finger. He had downloaded audio editing apps to make weird ringtones. When he pushed the button siren, a loud siren blared up but not loud enough for them to hear. Tian looked left and right, seeing the microphone on the stage floor, and lunged to grab it and pushed it against his phone. Someone was shouting, "Police!" Things stopped still for a moment, followed by loud curses, and the scene of chaos broke out as people ran away, not wanting to be locked up. The men who were beating each other up split and were taking their injured friends away, not wanting to get caught. Tian looked at the wrecks that he had caused and felt a chill run down his spine. The bar would bill him for compensation that might cost $1 million. Then he jumped out of his skin when someone grabbed him by the neck from behind. Phil was smiling coldly and viciously at him, with a bruised face. "I knew it was you. We need to talk." He dragged the leaner man outside while Tian struggled to get free. The son of an underground casino mogul threw his plaintiff into his Hummer and threw the door shut to lock Tian up. He turned at the culprit.
I thought you got intimidated when you didn't react at first. Then things blew up. Sorry, I didn't think it did go this far. Ian raised his palms to stop his friend from blowing up. Will clicked his tongue. He was furious, but he didn't know what else he could do. Then his eyes caught a glimpse of two police patrolling cars coming their way, so he ignited the engine. I'll take you home. What about my car? Call someone to pick it up for you. Your dad is right here. He cocked his head towards the police, pulling the gear and accelerated to get out of the crime scene as soon as possible. Ken glanced at his friend's split and bloodied lips, asking softly, "You want to stop by a hospital to patch it up?" He got a shout as soon as he finished the sentence. That was because of you, motherfucker. Alright, my bad. You can throw curses at me all you want. The former member of the racing gang dropped his back against the seat, frustrated, but Tool burst out laughing. What the fuck is wrong with you? Tian shouted. Just relieved. I thought you'd become so tame like a monk, but you're still the same wicked scamp I know. Is that a backhanded compliment or something? Man, I just said you're smart. So, it was a brain development camp on the hill that you joined? The question made the son of a former general quiet. If that captain learned that he had caused another trouble and got people hurt once again, how disappointed would he be? Tim looked out the window, gazing at the lights from roadside shops that spoke of modernity, a contrast to the picture of an outback village without electricity like Papandao. Fool, I'm not going to see them anymore. If the bar sends an invoice, I'll pay. The calm silence made Bull stop bickering, realizing the difference in his friend. He nodded. It's okay. I was the one who dragged you here. I'll take care of it. A large hand lifted from the steering wheel to slap lightly on Tian's shoulder as if to give him comfort. It's good that you're back in school. It's good for your future. Days turned to months. Months turned to years. Life in the northernmost part of Thailand still went on as no one could stop time, just the way no one could keep a good memory the same way it was. Since the last major crackdown of the illegal log hub nearly 2 years ago, the situation along the borders had returned to normal, with the few encounters with drug smugglers and sometimes terrorists. 3 days ago, the soldiers at Papra Perun operating base with the border police had joined forces to attack illegal human traffickers that launched a gunfight. Before the arrest, many men were injured, the captain who led the operation included. The infirmary, with a camp doctor and assistants, took a turn to tend to the wounds and check up on the soldiers who braved their lives in the latest attack. Pupa raised his t-shirt so his doctor's best buddy could clean a 10-stitch wound that ran along his rib. Wazant was grumbling as he worked how the patient didn't keep the wound dry. He'd told the captain to clean himself with a wet cloth, but instead the guy took a shower. He worried the man would catch putrefaction that he had to remove the flesh. Feeling sorry for your girl that you're such a grumpy whiner. Pupa said, irritated. My girl is tenfold grumpier than I am. The young captain snorted. So, you two deserve each other. When is the wedding? Dr. Wazant, wearing a pair of sanitary gloves, put clean gauze on his friend's wound and a tape to hold the fabric in place. The bandage also acted as a bumper as the massive officer moved. The families have talked, but I want to finish things up here first. If I can ask for a replacement for a month or 2 months, maybe I can go downhill and get married. Aren't you taking days off for the honeymoon? You said as if you will come back right here after the wedding. I don't think I'll do the honeymoon. The nonchalant words sounded as if the doctor wasn't really paying attention to his future wife's feelings and needs. It forced the captain to turn around and look at Wazant. You sure you love Dr. Jib? Why are you acting as if you're getting married out of an obligation? She's been waiting for you for ages. Wazant smiled lightly, knowing that his best friend was worried for him despite his cutting words. You're all right. We understand each other. To be honest, I don't want to stay in Bangkok too much because I'm worried about you. The tall officer's frown deepened, his face turning dark. He knew what his friend was talking about, but it had been a long time ago. Perhaps that former volunteer teacher had already dated 10 people. Doc, my wound's fine, he said darkly. I meant it. That's because you haven't looked in the mirror. The knowing eyes behind shiny silver frames glowed. Even if his physical wound got healed, even if the broken right arm was mended well, he could wield the gun again. Pupa had become a zombie whenever someone wasn't watching. He often spaced out if he was as if he was plagued with depression. Pupa was a quiet man who kept things to himself. He might say I'm fine, but who knew how broken he was on the inside? How can you know better than I do? The young doctor wanted to laugh at the man who wouldn't wear his heart on his sleeves, his lips forming a cunning grin. What about I'll pull some strings to get Dr. Tanakorn to work here while I'm on a wedding leave? He was referring to a younger military physician who just came to the station at King Mang Rai, the great camp in Chiang Rai district. Mang Rai, 1238 to 1311 AD, also known as Meng Rai, was the 25th king of Nguyen, the first king of Lana. He established a new city, Chiang Mai, as the capital of the Lana kingdom. As they went to a monthly meeting in the city, he spotted sweet smiles shot towards his poker-faced friend. Lean, fair complexion, good-looking, well-mannered, not effeminate, exactly your type. If you said your heart was healed then, you may try starting a new relationship. Hassan convinced his friend. More importantly, he could be the one who stays with you your whole life. Hearing the words, the dark, intense face became twisted with anger, just like the demon that someone had painted on the kite. Don't play a matchmaker. My foot might jerk and push you down the cliff. Easy, buddy. I only wish the best for you. I think Nong Tien had forgotten you by now. He said he will never forget. The deep, smooth, trembling voice still echoed in his mind like a curse that he had to live with this unfulfilled wish for the rest of his life. You're still holding out for him? A cunning smile vanished, replaced by an emphatic one. Mozart was feeling guilty that he wanted to see something fun, wishing that his friend would experience love once before he died. He had never imagined it would turn into such a tragedy. The doctor slapped gently on his friend's thick shoulder as a consolation. Fool, he'll remain out of reach if you don't reach out to him. I can get his address for you, but the phone numbers. Don't. Pupa slapped on top of his friend's hand. That's where he belongs, up there in the sky. You're right about finding someone else who can stay with me till my last day, but no one can ever replace a man in my heart. As soon as Wasant got recovered from being dumbfounded, he let out a long moan. I wanna cry. Wish I have recorded that and I'd send it to Nong Tien. I don't wanna talk to you anymore. My head's spinning. The captain was afraid he wouldn't be able to hold back and smack the unit doctor, who was a nuisance. He shot up, intending to leave, but the other man shouted, I'm going to send an invitation to the boy of your dream. Are you going to see him at the wedding reception? Pupa whipped around and pointed his finger at the mastermind. If you don't stay out of my business, Dr. Jib would soon become a widow. Ouch! I'm so scared, Captain.
The officer walked away before his head would explode from anger. Wasant was right about one thing, though, that if he stayed in Bangkok too long, it would be too quiet up here. Pupa had to admit that the way his friend got under his skin saved him from feeling too doomed and gloomed. He looked up at the sky as he was heading back to the house, seeing glittering thousands and thousands of stars. The picture of the city boy trying to count the stars appeared in his mind, and it made him smile. Have you found that star that would complete your search? Perhaps not. Not. But if he had, the wish made upon that night would already have come true. End of chapter 13.